let's get into. Let me stop this. Let's get into Vision XL. Uh, Vision 4X, sorry, or X4. I keep calling it X4, but it's Vision 4X. And that, do you know what I mean? Weird. But this is the analyzer plugin that we've got. I've got it on a specific preset and that, so then I can have all this coming up as well. This is this blue squiggly line in the bar on the right. That is your transient focus, basically. So it's an overall guideline of where you want your transients, which is what people are hearing, most of what people are hearing, to be in, kind of thing. And that's set to D&B hard. Because what we're going to do is, seeing as this is a plugin made by Noisia, I thought it'd be a good idea to get an old tune of theirs. Yes, Father Fenris. Be good to get an old tune of theirs and run it through this actual analyzer. Like this is Exorcism from their Block Control EP, which came out late 2000s, I think. 2009, 2010 maybe. And then for their most up-to-date newest track, I've picked Supersonic because it has the whole spatial audio. This is them, do you know what I mean, producing at their highest level with the newest stuff that they've got to hand. Do you know what I'm saying? And stuff. And then by contrast, what we're going to do is we're going to listen to a 5-year-old track of mine when I first got back into making drum and bass again after a little bit of a break. Excuse me, and stuff. And then listen to a newest one from 2022. Last mixdown was from December 2022, so it's last month was the last time that I actually touched it. And that go through all of them and see how they actually fare in their own plugin analyzer that they've got. So we'll start off with Noisia Block Control. Let's go. Actually, let me explain the different sections that we've got here. So this main section here, the big square here, this is where you're going to see all of your energy, do you know what I mean, within your actual content. This section here with the actual squiggly line going through it is your normal frequency analyzer. But what they've done is, instead of it being horizontal with your lows to the right and the highs to the left, they've done it where the lows are at the bottom and the highs are at the top. And then how loud it is going from left to right. Do you know what I'm saying? Which to me makes all the sense in the fucking world. I know that it's always been the horizontal way, always, but for me, it just never made sense in my brain. Obviously, over time, I've gotten used to it and shit, but it just never made sense to me in my brain, especially when we're talking about highs and lows, mids and stuff. I'm always thinking about things in a vertical sense rather than a horizontal sense. So to have them do that, and don't get me wrong, if you want to change it in the settings, you can rotate it so it's a normal way and shit. But for me, having it going, do you know what I mean, horizontal instead vertical instead of horizontal, just makes all the sense in the world for me. At the bottom here where this grey bit is, that's your waveform for your actual track. So whether it's on the mastering bus or whether it's on an individual track for like kicks and stuff like that, this is where you're going to actually see it run through and all the individual hits and stuff like that. And then this last square is your stereo field. How much is spreading left and right, up and down, all that kind of stuff. I've forgotten the technical name for it, but it's for measuring your stereo field, your stereo range. Then you've got 2 meters here. One is for your LUFS. I think this is for LUFS here, but I think you can change it. And the other one is for RMS, I think it is. I think the other one is for RMS, one is for LUFS. I'm not quite sure. Don't pay attention to that too much because you'll have another meter to accurately measure your LUFS and your RMSs and true peaks and things like that and stuff. It's mainly this square, this right here, this right here, and this right here. They're the main things that are important to me, and also this transients focus bar set to D&B hard. But there's different settings. There's also D&B deep, D&B jungle, hip hop house, IDM, indie, jazz, modern pop, pink noise, which is a good one, which is just the main range that the human ear actually hears. So you can see, which frequencies are staying within that range or going above. As you can see, some are already going above, but it's a guideline. It's not a strict rule. It's a guideline. Well, I'll switch this back from pink noise to hard D&B because that's what we're listening to. And yeah, we'll listen to this from the beginning. Hold to all my tea drinkers. Roll it if you got it. Pass it around in the chat. You can see kick energy there. See, some of it is drifting a little bit into the lower range, lower bass range. Just normal Indian tea, no herbal teas. PG tips. As you can see, they're staying in that transient range already, even from way before they made this plugin. Okay, let's see what it looks like when the bass content comes in. Okay, well within the range. So let me just pause it there where it's got a lot of the actual like content in there, and like if you press this button at the bottom here, you can actually pause where the spectrum analyzer is, and it keeps all of those frequencies there, so you can see how the body of the tune is looking and stuff. Few hotspot areas where a few things are clashing, but that's naturally going to happen. From what I can understand, you don't really want a lot of like block red. That's just from what I can understand. But then again, we can look at one of their newer tunes that's coming up, and it may have big blocks of red within the bass area, the mid to lower mids to lows area of the frequency range and stuff. So that's what I'm gathering here on this part here, where the normal bar graph would be. Having that guideline there, do you know what I mean, to be able to see like, okay, what's going to be the sweet spot for people's ears, do you know what I mean, is amazing. I think that's great. Also because my room is not properly professionally treated, and my bigger speakers that I've got, they're probably too big for the room, but my 5-inch cone speakers that I've got, they might be too small for the room. Being able to see what areas need affecting and what areas need sorting out, which parts of the frequency range really needs focusing in on and being able to be like clean up, so everything's sounding a lot more clear and present. You know, having something to visualize rather than just being able just having to depend on my ears and depend on how the room overall sounds and stuff is a great aid, especially if you've not got any acoustic treatment, you've not really got a room where you can do that kind of stuff. You just kind of making do with where you are and what you've got. Having this kind of aid and a guideline to sort of help you, do you know what I mean? Like see the areas that you need to work on is absolutely amazing. Do you know what I mean? So with using this, I've been able to go back through a couple of my tunes, single out tracks, do you know what I mean? And EQ a bit more, you know, sculpt and shape sounds a bit more, so they're a lot cleaner and present within the space that they need to fit in, and they're not bleeding too much into other frequency ranges and other spaces that they shouldn't, which will end up making a mix sound muddy and unclear and unclean and shit, you know. So from that one, let's listen to Supersonic, which is one of their current ones. Yeah, there's other producers like involved in this one, but you can tell that like Noisia, do you know what I mean? And Skrillex, but probably Noisia did the bulk of the work on this tune, to be fair, especially with the creative production and stuff. So let's see how this runs through here. Unpause this. Let's go.
Information making me question our relation to the nation, our religion, supersonic, my existence can't resist us. Clearly I find myself living inside a shelf. All of these pages can.
And instantly, I'm proven wrong because there's a lot of red in this. Do you know what I mean? So it meant that like the red representation may not mean what I think it means. It just may mean that it's pretty hot and there's a lot going on within that area. Do you know what I mean?
Got all my introspect, mirrors they don't reflect all of the things that we do. My existence.
Wow. Okay, that's very interesting. Very, very interesting indeed. Hold on. So yeah, get a quick snapshot. So there's your kick. Do you know what I mean? There's your snare. In that section, I can tell with the snare because that's where the highs of the snare are cutting through. Yes, sure, shock. Yes, sure, shock. I'm glad that you come through because you asked. You this stream is basically inspired by you, sure, shock beat. It was like, give a demo. It was like, you know what? That'd be a good idea. Still do a stream on it. Again. So first thing I'm recognizing is regardless of how far the techniques and cut have come the principles still seem to be the same, because whether it's from the 2010 up until now, it's still, their tunes are still within the guideline range, regardless of that. So it's more, the main differences that I can tell from like Exorcism to this tune, and both of them purchased on iTunes, do you know what I mean? And stuff. So the same type of file. Hopefully they would have been mastered in a way where the masters fit the actual platforms that they're going on. If you've got a good mastering engineer, then they're going to be doing individual masters for each platform that the track is supposed to be going on and stuff. It's all about perceived loudness, not real true peak loudness. It's all about perceived loudness. This sounds so much more cleaner and clearer than Exorcism, even though they're both still within the transient range, 10 years apart. With this tune, the newer tune, there's just a lot more bass content, a whole lot more bass content. And that's probably come from the fact of over the years we've been able to figure out how much more we can actually push the bass content without it overshadowing and overpowering the rest of the actual mix and stuff. So that's the main thing that I can tell from referencing both of those tunes, comparing both of those tunes and stuff. And that a lot of Red, they're using spectrum analyzers. If they're seeing red in this and they're happy with it, then again, it's more about sculpting and cleaning up that area as much as possible. So then if there is any red, the main red is the sub and maybe a bit of kick, but probably that area would have had side chain, like the sub would have been side chained a little bit with the kick, or there's automated volume going on with the sub to dip the volume of the sub when the kick comes in. However you choose, to clean up the bass content, the sub area content of your track. Do you know what I mean? So red isn't necessarily bad. Red just means busy, from what I can gather. Do you know what I'm saying? And then in terms of stereo, the stereo imaging, I didn't really look there too much because I was focusing on these two areas and that, but it's good to have it there. There's a lot of stereo content, upfront content from like that big mound of white at the top corner. Do you know what I mean? Of the stereo field. So a lot of upfront content and that, and then the spatial audio, like mono like aspect of the tune might be coming into play. I don't know exactly, but from what I can gather and that. So with that in mind, these are professionals doing it for so long, this, that, and the third. Let's listen to an unprofessional from 5 years ago, how it fares in this. This is one of my tunes, by the way. This is Drive By before it was Drive By with Shard Rain Salvage. Made this in 2018.
Hey, let's go twist this cat back.
Cars that coming up, creep. Drive by. There's that motherfucker that was talking shit the other night.
Okay, I was getting a bit too much into the vibe there. And that because I've not listened to this. I have not listened to that for ages. But no, the official release is out and that, which is Drive By, Chardre and Salvage. And that featured myself with Chardre and Salvage. Um it came out on the Foundations EP on Short Circuit Records and stuff. So it's out, it's out, it's out. It's just this was the version, all me. This was the idea that I brought to them. It was just like, look, let's collaborate on this. And then they cleaned it up because they knew more. They still know more about production. They still know more about production than me. Do you know what I mean? But at the time, it was like I was just sponging, getting as much information about up to date production techniques as I possibly can. Do you know what I mean? Around that time. And it shows because, so in terms of this area here, and that's my kick. Compared to how Noisia's kicks were on Supersonic and things like that, it's not coming through enough. Do you know what I mean? And there's still a little bit of like low content, lower frequency content that I could EQ out, which could give more room for the actual bass and stuff when I've got my long bass notes like this one here in the middle, in the actual middle of the graph and stuff. The subs I'm very conservative with the sub, it seems, and that because again, compared to Supersonic, yo, I could have boosted the sub up a lot more. Do you know what I mean? Shape it so it's not overpowering, it's not muddy. Do you know what I mean? Side chaining, EQ, all that kind of stuff. But there's that shows me that there's more that I could have done within the you know, the lower mids and lower mids and low end of the actual track. What I love listening to all of these tracks and watching this graph is how much space is actually in the high end. If there isn't loads of percussion, loads of layers of breaks upon breaks and stuff like that, how much space there is. And that's where your mid range is able to actually cut through a lot more. Do you know what I mean? And stuff, you can actually see, how much more headroom you actually have when there's not that much going up in the like lower highs, upper mids to like highs area. All your main focus areas is the mid range, lower to mid, and if you've got all of that sorted, then your sub is going to be absolutely fine. Absolutely fine. Because even though it's not that loud in terms of perceived loudness, it's still pretty beefy and loud.
Yo, what's up now?
My highs are a bit too much because they're coming out of the actual transient focus range, and that, so maybe I can bring my highs down, maybe use a clipper or a exciter to bring out more brightness in the highs rather than turning the highs up or EQing more of the highs up. And that, because that's a trick that I've been seeing a lot of producers use, using exciters and brighteners to bring out the highs of percussion rather than actually EQing and boosting those actual areas. Perceived loudness. This is helping me to understand perceived loudness a lot more. And that, because I know on this track, all I did was just turn the highs up higher. That's it. I wanted more highs, so I just turned them up rather than using techniques to give the perception of the highs being higher, but not to the point where they're actually hurting your ears if you're listening in headphones or if you're listening on, a big club system or sound system and stuff. So this is the main thing that this like plugin is helping me out, as well as where the focus areas in my tunes are and stuff. So that's an old one from nearly 5 years ago. Let's listen to my newest one, which is Wading, and that, which is I do love this one. No, so yeah, let's check this one out. There we go. Right, okay, so interesting, very interesting. I still have an issue with my highs because my highs are coming out of the transient focus area, but they don't seem to be as bad, do you know what I mean, as they were on drive-by in terms of how they're sounding and how they're piercing in my ears and stuff. But the reason why I wanted to stop it at this particular bit is, if you notice towards the left here where there's a red spike in between the thick red underneath it, and there's like a yellow gap in between the bits of red, that's because of side chaining, ducking, where I've started using ducking a lot more and side chaining a lot more. Basically a plugin called Duck. It's about £10-15, maybe about $20, and it's just this easier and simpler way of side chaining, basically, and it just does everything for you, and you just adjust the minimal parameters, like how much you really want the kick to duck through, how much of a ducking amount you want it to have. So like a quick duck or a long duck. Do you know what I mean? In the sub, I've got quite a quick one, but it's enough for you to actually see the space that's being created with the ducking for the kick, and that red mark there looks like a clean space for the kick to come through. Do you know what I mean? Enough. What's the cost of this plugin? £50, so probably around $60. Hold on, let me bring it up. Actually, bring it up for you. I got it on Plugin Boutique. Plugin Boutique. Plugin Boutique. 100 Canadian. What? 100 Canadian. Jesus Lord. Yeah, but yeah, $100 Canadian. Can I actually change it? Like, yeah, 49 £49. So yeah, that'll be one. Is that 100 Canadian? Wow. There's light versions you can get of it. There are other versions you can get of it, but they don't have the collection of all four together. and stuff like this. No, that's a cross grade upgrade. So like the light version is just that and that individually, those bits individually. And stuff, and you can change the colors, like you can see on this one. You can change the colors to what visually looks understandable to you and that, but it's not all four together, unfortunately, because I was thinking about just getting the light version, and I was thought, nah, I need the bar graph on the side as well, so I can actually see the frequencies, and it's a lot more understandable. That just looks like a smudge. That just looks like a smudge of colors going across the screen. But with having all of that there, seeing all of that, and then seeing the frequency range that it's hitting on the right, and then seeing how much in or out of the transient focus range it is or isn't. Do you know what I mean? Also seeing the waveform originally, so I know that that's the kick, because that's where the kick is. Do you know what I mean? I know that's the bass in between, because I can't see the kick hit in between, and that. So yeah. So for me, now understanding the different things that I do now with producing compared to what I was doing 5 years ago, it's good to be able to see that visual representation in the graph as well. Do you know what I mean? So I definitely know, maybe do a bit more of a sharper duck, so the sub comes in a bit more quicker, depending on how much of a boom the kick actually is. I might use some transient shaping on the kick to actually, you know what? Let me bring it up. Let's put it into practice.